Today we'll be looking at how to graph using the calculator. Our objectives will be to graph linear equations using your calculator, to examine the table feature of the calculator, and to graph nonlinear functions also using your calculator. We'll want to begin by setting a viewing window. Let me remind you the steps for setting a standard window. Zoom 6, which is Z standard, will set the window for you so that x min is equal to a -10, x max is a +10, x scale is a 1, y min is -10, y max is +10, and y scale is 1. That's the window we'll set for the equation we're now going to graph. Today we'll be graphing y is equal to 3x minus 5. Your keystrokes would be y equal, and then on the line y1 you would enter 3x, and let me remind you the easiest place to get that x is right beside your alpha key, minus, and please make sure you're using the subtraction key, the one over on the right hand side of your calculator that's in the list of operations, not the negative key that's down below it in parentheses, and then 5. So these are the keystrokes for entering this information. This is what it should look like on your screen. Once you have a viewing window set, and this entered into Y1, then graphing is a piece of cake. You simply hit your graph button, and there is exactly what you should see on your calculator. Let me point out to you that this is exactly what the graph would have looked like if we had done it by plotting points. We could have built a table. We could have chosen x values, probably 0, 1, and 2. We could have plugged them in, found the y's that went with them, plotted those points, drawn the line, and we would have this picture right here. Let me tell you something else your calculator can do for you that's fairly neat. You remember that table we just talked about? Well, your calculator can do that as well. Let's go to Second, Graph, which is actually Table, and what you should see on your calculator is a table of values. You'll see an X column and a Y1 column. That is your X and Y, those ordered pairs of numbers, just like you would have calculated if you had done your T-chart. Notice that when X is 0, Y is -5. That's exactly what you would have calculated if you had plugged a 0 in. Also, when you plug in 1, you get a -2. When you plug in 2, you get a 1. It's just that your calculator has done all that work for you. You've paid $100 for it. It might as well do something nice for you. Let's look at another equation. What if I gave you this one? Well, the steps are the same. This time I won't give you quite as many keystrokes, but I think you can still enter the information. When you enter it in your calculator, please make sure to remember to put fractions inside parentheses. So you'll open your parentheses, 1 divided by 3, close parentheses, and then x minus 6. So that's what your screen should look like when you're ready to enter. When you graph, that's what your picture would look like, exactly the same as it would have if you had plotted points. And then here is what your table would look like. Remember, if we were doing this by plotting points, we would have chosen multiples of 3 so that when we plugged in 1, we wouldn't get those decimals. When we plugged in 2, we wouldn't get decimals. We would have probably chosen 0 and got a -6, 3 and got a -5, and 6 and got a -4. Your calculator really doesn't care about the decimals, so it'll do all of them for you. Now let's look at graphing an absolute value problem. I will take you through a few extra keystrokes this time because you may not be familiar with some of these. This time we'll go to y equal, we'll press math, the right arrow will move you to highlight the num, N-U-M. The first thing you see in that screen is 1 for absolute value. So if you enter that, then you would need to tell your calculator what you're taking the absolute value of. In this case it's an x, so that's what we entered. And notice that your calculator opened a set of parentheses when it started the absolute value. You have to remember to close it. So that's what you do next. Once you've done that, this is what you should see on your calculator screen. You're now ready to graph. So you press the graph key, and this is the picture you see. Notice that the graph of an absolute value function looks like a V. Let's check the table of values for this one. This time I have a table that began at -3, and I want you to notice that the absolute value of -3 is a +3, absolute value of a -2 is 2, and the absolute value of the positive numbers are what I think you would expect them to be. The absolute value of 2 is 2, and the absolute value of 3 is equal to 3. You may not be looking at a screen that looks exactly like mine, but at this point I want to remind you that you have arrows on your calculator that will move you up and down. So if you don't happen to see the negative values on your screen, use your arrows to scroll up or down until you can get your screen to look exactly like mine does. Let's now graph another nonlinear equation. This time we'll graph y is equal to x squared plus 3. Your keystrokes are y equal to get you to the y1 line, and then x, and let me remind you, to raise something to a power you use the caret. It's underneath the clear key on your calculator. So x raised to the second power plus 3. When you graph, this is what you should see, and this time your table should look like this. Notice once again I've scrolled so that I can see some negative numbers and some positive numbers and 0 in the center. I know that some of you have just been dying for us to get to where we could use the calculators for graphing. Well, we're there now, and I want to remind you of a couple of things. If you're a person who is fluent in calculator ease, then please make sure that you do enough of the manual work that you understand the concepts there. If you're a person who says, I hate that calculator, I hated it from the day I tried to get it out of that package that wouldn't let me get it out, then to you I say, please make sure that you use your calculator enough to become familiar with it. Both manual and calculator computations will be necessary for you to be successful this semester. And I want to leave you with this thought. One kind word can warm 3 winter months. Please make sure that your words are warming hearts around you. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you soon.